Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, a different kind of gaming bill. Also, Al Gopp clears Tommy Tuberville to run for governor. And what does residency in Alabama really mean?
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Some of our Republican friends want to see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. But you must follow the law. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and the one and only Josh Moon, investigative reporter and columnist at APR. Welcome.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Well, this Sunday past, the Alabama Republican candidate committee met over the phone, sort of a bit of an unusual deal, where they heard several challenges to people who want to run as Republican this election cycle in the primary, and surprisingly, they cleared Senator Tommy Tuberville to run for governor, even though there was a residency challenge to the committee. They said that these were factually deficient. They also cleared John Wall, who had a residency issue against him running for lieutenant governor. That too was rejected. They did also clear Garland Gudger, Senator President Pro Tem, to his challenge, which I felt was certainly justified. And they did something extra as a kicker. They pushed some of them off to actually do real hearings. But then they disqualified Dean Odle, Mr. Flat Earther, under a sore loser provision because when he didn't win the primary for Republican governor last term, he ran as an independent. That's in their bylaws. Susan, I don't think there was anything surprising out of any of that.
No, not surprising at all. The votes came in a little weird, but no, I'm not surprised by it all. And it is in the bylaws that if Odle did indeed run as an independent, then he's out. So,
Josh, again, no surprises there. I think the surprise is, at least to me, and maybe not a surprise is the wrong word, how quickly they disposed of all these issues before the candidate committee.
Yeah, I would say there were a lot of Republicans that were very upset with the speediness with which it was with both the Tuberville challenge and the Wall challenge, and a couple of the other ones down ballot as well were dismissed, and the fact that some were upheld. I think that and to some extent you get this every time. You know what I mean? I mean, you get that to some degree there was this. I don't know that you necessarily have that top of the ticket issue that you have right now with them, but I mean it is it was nothing real surprising though at all.
No, and this is sort of this is what we used to call home cooking. You know, the determination was made before anything really was needed to be done, because there is no political will, even though we know many Republicans feel differently about Tuberville's residency. The skids are greased, the wheels are in motion, and quite frankly, they are afraid to go against him because he has become very Trumpian in his responses. He's become very vindictive in how he responds, and one could say arrogant beyond what might a human being, conduct themselves.
Especially when we're in a campaign season and not, he's not governor yet.
Right, right. I think the more interesting thing here, and this is, we've talked to lawyer after lawyer. Now, if you've got two lawyers, and they get paid, they're gonna disagree. But Josh, the key here is resident citizen. The statute says you have to be at least 30 years old, resident of the United States for 10 years, and 7 years resident of Alabama continuously before the election. And every attorney you've talked to, every attorney I've talked to, the honest ones, even historians that we've talked to, said that residency in that term means domicile. Basically, where do you put your head? Where are your clothes at? Where do you spend the majority of your time? And these say he doesn't meet the requirements. But Tuberville's lawyers say, well, no, doesn't mean what you think it means.
Well, yeah, honestly, I'll say this. I would like to hear what Tuberville's lawyers say. I would like to hear what the argument is, because as far as I know, what was reported, and I believe 1819 reported that some of the information that was provided to the committee for the Republican Party that cleared him was that they provided the driver's license and some voter registration information. And I would wonder if anybody raised any other questions or anything like that. I really would like to hear what their argument is in favor of him, meeting these requirements that are there. Because I think everybody has looked at it and said, well, hey man, why don't you turn over your tax returns and we can put this whole thing to rest. And because that is kind of, you can't be a resident and not do the tax returns. That's why everybody harps on the tax returns. Is you can't say I'm a resident of Alabama and then not file taxes here. It's just
right.
It's illegal. So I just wonder what other information they're going to try to lean on, because this is not going to go away. This is going to go into court. It's going to go other places, and so I wonder what information that they're going to try to rely on before a court that they're hoping will meet those resident citizen requirements in the past 7 years.
And you can have lots of residents. That's not about residents. You can have lots of residents. You can have a resident in Florida. You can have a resident in Hawaii. You can have a resident in Buck's Pocket. But it's where do you lay your head at?
Right. And we have a residence in Montgomery. We don't go there, but we have one.
Yeah.
Our domicile is here in Etowah County.
Right.
There's a difference. Yes, we have two places that we could live, but we keep our stuff, we cook our meals, we lay our head in Etowah County.
And that's what the Constitution is referring to. There's at least 4 court precedents where they have defined residency as domicile. But that's the argument here, and the Tuberville camp is very adamant about that they have the proof, but they have not released it to the public. And we've been criticized for talking about this too much. But the thing is, just give us the paperwork and then we'll shut up. Okay?
What's the name of what we do? I mean, this is the voice of Alabama politics.
That's right.
We write under the Alabama Political Reporter. So this is by far the biggest political story in the state. You're running for governor. You're running for governor at this point.
Yeah.
And we've just had this thing take place. It's not like we're harping on this thing in June.
I know.
This thing just took place. And so I think that's the thing that people need to keep in mind. I mean, this is the office that you're running for. The fact that these questions are out there because of this matter of law, it's different than the office you just held. Just do the paperwork and put the thing to bed, and we can all move on and be kumbaya happy with everybody.
And that is my point I have made to those who have called me and said, it's settled. Just shut up. Move on. Just show us the paperwork. We're fine with that. We don't care who's governor. We just want it to be legal. But we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Josh, you wrote about it this past week. A different kind of gaming bill has been introduced by Democratic Senator Marika Coleman, and it is, I like it. I think it's brilliant. I don't think it goes anywhere because she's a Democrat, but I think it is a brilliant idea. Kind of break it down for us.
Yeah. The idea behind this is, the details of gambling. If anybody has followed this battle over gaming in this state for any period of time, and it's been going on for 20 years, they know that the details of the gaming bills are always what kind of trips it up. It's the give and take here or there. And so what she's done essentially is remove the details and allow it to where, because this is a constitutional amendment, you're going to have a constitutional amendment passed to pass gaming, and so you need 3/5. And so when you need that, and you have everybody arguing over all the little intricate details in these bills, then you have an issue a lot of times, and you can't get the thing passed. And so what she did was just say, basically, the constitutional amendment is going to say that we're allowed to pass gaming legislation. So we're going to just take the 3/5 off the table and then come back later and pass the gaming legislation. Now, you're right. I think it's dead. It's probably deader than dead. But because there just isn't enough trust among everybody to lay that out there, because when you need just a simple majority to pass a lot of things, there are a lot of people that want to make sure this is protected. They want to make sure that this thing doesn't happen, that this other thing doesn't happen, that this person doesn't get too much of an advantage, or that person doesn't, and so I just don't know that there's enough trust among everybody to do this. And so, but I will say it's a good idea. And it's a good way to kind of get it in front of the voters, I would say. And I think that this is something that voters would really like to have.
Well, and that's the key. Her allows the voters to say yes or no. That's the key here.
Yeah.
And that's what people want, is to be able to vote on it. The voters are not concerned as much about the details as they are getting the opportunity to say how they feel about it.
Well, it's not like they can't, and the way she's done this is just that the voters say yes or no, up or down, yes or no. Okay.
Yeah.
Just simple. And then they can come back and form the gaming legislation. It's not like they're not going to have a say in that legislation.
Right.
Because it has to go before the legislature. It has to have their votes. It has to go through committees. It doesn't. It stops the nonsense and gets something moving forward. But like you said, she's a Democrat.
Well, there's an old saying
so it's
in
probably
politics.
dead in the water.
I remember talking to this old politician one time, and I said, well, how have you stayed in politics so long? And he looked at me and said, 3 words, Bill, trust no sumbitch. And that is exactly the way they operate on these gaming bills. Nobody trusts anybody, so nothing gets done. But Josh, you also wrote a column this week that I thought was very, 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 very good. And it's where, you know what? There are a lot of Mississippi is doing a whole lot better than Alabama. We used to say, thank God for Mississippi when we were, only in the second last place. But Mississippi is doing really good, and they are taking our dollars, as you pointed out.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. They're raking money in hand over fist along the Gulf Coast, and those Gulf Coast dollars are coming directly from us. We pride ourselves on the tourism going down to the Gulf Coast, and they're pulling them in over there, and they're doing it through gaming, and it's I had actually it's. We're fortunate we record the show a little earlier in the week, and I had a conversation this morning actually with a couple of folks in the gaming world, and one of them was saying to me that they were talking to a lawmaker who said, I just don't know about bringing gaming into Alabama, and he said. Listen, I'm gonna ask you not to ever say that in front of me again, because he said that's just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And really, it is, because we got it everywhere. I can take you anywhere in the state, whatever you want to play. I can take you somewhere in this state, and I can let you play it, and we'll be unencumbered. We can walk right in the doors. Nobody's gonna say anything to us or anything. And in fact, most of it is legal. And the sports wagering that a lot of people are trying to do right now, we've got prediction market games that are basically sports wagering that are legal everywhere. I can open up my phone right now and place bets on the Super Bowl. And so it's idiotic what we're doing, because all we're doing is watching this money leave from us, and all we would have to do is pass laws to regulate it and tax it. You're not introducing anything new. As a matter of fact, you would probably reduce the amount of gaming that you have here and reduce the bad things that go with gaming if you would just do these simple things and fix this stuff.
Well, it is truly just asinine what they do. They say they don't increase gambling. Like Josh said, most of this reduces gaming, and the fact is, you got illegal gaming going on everywhere. You've got legal gambling going on in places. What you don't have is the state getting a dime in the revenue or regulating it. It's just nonsense. It's like saying, I don't know. I can't even think of an analogy. It's so absurd.
The rationale is that, it brings all these problems. We're getting the problems already.
Yeah.
Okay, you're talking about gambling addiction, whatever. We have no money to address the gambling addiction that our citizens are having created in Mississippi and bringing back home.
Yeah.
We have no way of no money to do anything with that.
And the thing is they do not trust the people to vote, because the anti-gaming people, and this is mostly those who are worried about losing, the base. The anti-gambling people, they know the truth, but they have to spout lies because that's how this works. And some of them are raking in money from some of these other entities, which is the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
But they just cannot help themselves. They can't be honest about it. But anyway, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
There is a road laid out for me.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Leading down to the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
What do you think?
I know this road is there for me. If I'm really free, take me down to the river and walk.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You know, Alabama is trying to pass a law. Representative Greg Barnes to make it a C felony to interrupt a church service. It's House Bill 363, Susan, and this is a direct response to the protests that took place in Minnesota, in which they protested a church. The pastor of the church was a member of ICE, and protesters went in there. And, this might sound like on its face a good bill, but it's a reactionary bill. And, there's two things going on here. Don Lemon, well-respected journalist in most circles, that was with CNN for many, many years. He was removed from CNN, and he started his own news organization online, which is doing quite well. But he was at that protest. He covered that protest in the church. But now the federal government, the Trump administration, has indicted him on just the most ludicrous of grounds. But they have arrested a member of the press for doing their job.
Right.
And this is where this all becomes dangerous.
It becomes very dangerous because this, like you said, this is a reactionary bill. Reactionary bills are always dangerous because they're usually put together very quickly without thinking it through. And we all know how the Alabama legislatures think it through has been busted forever. But yeah, he went in, and I take great issue with this as a journalist because I've covered stuff like this myself, where you are following a story, which is what Don Lemon was doing. He entered the church with them because that's where the story was. And then they found a way to arrest him. They found a loophole in him and another person, another
Josh,
journalist.
I know Susan and I know you have been covering the story when a protest would break out all around you at different places. And all of a sudden, I mean, we've been in the State House where a protest erupted. We didn't know there was even going to be one.
Yeah.
I mean,
the next thing we knew, people were all over the ground and zip-tied their hands behind their back.
But
we were in the,
But this is the kind of thing that always gets out of control once it starts.
Yeah, and the arresting of Don Lemon was atrocious just because, look, there were two judges who told them that they couldn't do this, that they didn't have the grounds to do it. And so they did it anyway because they wanted to arrest Don Lemon. And it was a political arrest. Let's be honest, it was a political arrest. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't protesting or disrupting a church, isn't it already illegal? Isn't it a private business? And you can't just roll up into anywhere that you want to and protest without some sort of,
But I think they want to make it a felony is the trick there.
And I mean, look, I'll say this. I wish they hadn't have protested at the church. I wish they hadn't gone in and disrupted the church. And that's a crime. It's a crime that they should not have done. I'll say this. I also believe that we should pass some sort of restriction on ICE going into churches and disrupting services to arrest folks as well.
Yeah.
And not just ICE, but other folks. I mean, to a certain degree, when we're talking about a felony charge or a warrant or something along those lines, well, then, yeah, we can make a carve out of that. But if we're talking about just going in and arresting people on administrative warrants, which is what ICE is doing in almost all cases, then I think we got to draw some lines here of where they can go and what they can do. But yeah, listen, it's making a spectacle out of this thing because people on the right really don't like Don Lemon. Okay, and if that's what we're going to start doing, then that's going to be a huge problem for a lot of people.
And one thing that everybody needs to understand is right now the Republicans are in charge. That will change. And when you pass laws and don't think of what happens when the shoe is on the other foot, you're being naive because it always changes. And whatever you leave open, for one, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I want to go to the next one because I think this is hugely important, and it's in light of this. There have been protests all the past 2 weeks in Alabama over the killings in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Bruce Springsteen, the boss, wrote a song called "The Streets of Minneapolis," and it's a very powerful song. You may
very haunting.
You may like it, you may not like it, But Susan, it bears witness to what is happening there, as so many songs do. And people sometimes forget that songs like this one are more indictments than, and what they do is they keep it in public memory. But what politicians want to do is stall with legalese and to say, oh, we have to have investigations and this and that. So you never get to the meat of it. Crosby, Still, and Nash wrote Ohio, 4 dead in Ohio when 4 students at Kent State University were mowed down by National Guard live on television. And that song created more backlash than anything. It reminded people of it. But no one at Kent State was ever prosecuted because that's the way government works.
Right. And, you know, but the song is still around. People still remember it, which is important in marking time and remembering our history. And the same thing I think is going to be true with this Bruce Springsteen song. It's very haunting. You know, he talks about the mists of blood that these people are looking through, which is so apparent. But yeah, I think it's not just Ohio. There are many other songs throughout history that you pointed out this week. You know, when it goes to lynchings and things that nothing ever got done about it. But at least we have the song to mark, and people try to remember their history, even though they, you know.
Josh, I'd love to give you the last word on this, but I think we just ran out of time.
Yeah, that's how it happens.
Anyway, you've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.